everyone. This is W, host of the High Art on the Edge page, host of 2 podcast features. The first one is called PCE, which stands for Post Concert Energy, and the one you are listening to right now, yes, right now, it is called Surprise Cast. And I'm super excited. Why? I want to talk to you about this band called Trillium. They are a captivating band hailing from the bustling city of Sydney, Australia. They are known for their dreamy soundscapes and amazing melodies. The band has carved a niche for themselves in the indie, shoegaze, psych music scene. Their music is full, rich tapestry of swirling guitar effects, atmospheric synths, lush vocals, which invites me to lose myself in their world of sound. Let us bring this band into this conversation, into our podcast studio. Welcome to Surprise Cast. Hello, Steve. How are you?
G'day, W. Good, thank you.
You're quite welcome. Could you tell us where you are podcasting from and what you do in the band?
Of course. I am dialing in from Sydney, from Gadigal land that was never ceded. And I am one of the 2 singers and guitarist and one of the songwriters for Trillium.
Welcome. Let's go to Tara. Where are you podcasting from? And tell us what you do in the band.
Hello, I'm podcasting from Medlow, Bath, which is in the upper Blue Mountains. I am on Darug and Gundungurra land, also not ceded. I am a vocalist, the other vocalist, and I play synth, and I've written 1 song.
Nice to meet you, Tara.
Nice to meet you.
And Luke.
Good morning. I'm Luke, and I play drums in Trillium.
I want to throw a few icebreaker questions your way. How does that sound? Give me a thumbs up. Great. So, Steve, I'm going to start with you, my friend. And I want you to tell the listeners and me, if you had to pick 1 or 2 karaoke songs to sing, what would they be and why?
Gee, that's a good icebreaker, isn't it? That's a difficult question. Being the singer in the band, I think karaoke is actually really good fun. I think karaoke also really depends on context. So I would have to go something absolutely cheesy because I'd want to be doing karaoke with these guys at some bad 3 a.m. drunken night somewhere. So I reckon something from the 70s, something absolutely cheese soaked with, and Tara and Luke will know this, but I am so not a fan of, terrible guitar riffs. So it would have to be something like an Eagles or something like that, just to absolutely make the point.
Thank you for sharing. Tara, your turn for an icebreaker question. And this one goes like this. If there's an artist or a musician that you would love to meet one day, who would that be and why?
No, that's a good one. This is going to be so random, but I would love to meet Cyndi Lauper. I love her. I have loved her since I was a kid. I love her kind of feminist stance and what she does for young women. I love that she was just so completely herself, so kind of, out of the box of mainstream. And she's
What would you ask her?
I'd just ask her about herself. Like I'd ask, her story, what experiences in life she'd had, what music she likes, what art she likes, her favorite movies, her favorite books, like just get to know her as her.
You ever seen her live?
No.
Me
Unfortunately.
Cyndi Lauper. Thank you for sharing. I hope it works out one day. We're going to lob the ball over to Luke. And Luke, this is your icebreaker question. Name an album that always makes you want to get up and dance?
It's a great question, but unfortunately, I'm not much of a dancer. I don't think I have the coordination required, which is surprising for a drummer. But I can give you maybe an example of a song. I mean, it's very cliched, but Mr. Brightside by the Killers is obviously like a danceable song. It's really fun. Or, I mean, look, I don't really listen to a lot of like, you know, danceable music, I suppose you could say. But another good example would be like Let's Dance by Bowie.
Well, that wraps up our silly and fun icebreaker questions. We're now going to move the needle over one more groove, if you will. And I'm going to read a passage from a book that my girlfriend just bought for me. It is called What Art Does, an Unfinished Theory, written by Betty A. and Brian Eno. And Steve, we're going to start with you. I recommend this book to all the listeners. It's a quick read, but if you're familiar with Brian Eno, you know he's going to get into some pretty deep stuff. Let us tackle it. Here we go. Making art seems to be a universal human activity. All over the world, people can be found creating and wearing elaborate costumes, pretending to be someone else. Dangerous animal, a king, someone from the spirit world. We could say that art is one of the key attributes of being human, like language. It's easy to understand why language is so universal, but we don't seem to have a very clear picture of why art should also be. So what I want to know from you, Steve, what does art do for you? How does it impact you? How does it affect you?
I mean, that's a great quote, isn't it? And it sounds like a really interesting book. I reckon it's one of those primal things. I don't know how or why, but it's something, whether it be music, paintings, movies, whatever it might be. But there's something about it that speaks to your inner working. I was going to say your soul, but your inner working. I know for me, different people have different types of art that just lifts them up or pulls them down or gets them thinking, like a great book. For me, music and writing are the two. I think writing, the power of language and the power of language to change emotions and change thought patterns and change the way you view the world. And music has always been my thing. Music has been the type of art that I can't control the need to do it. Like generally write a song a week and I'll record it and the band will hear some and not others. Some of it's good and some of it's not, but it's something that I actually just need to do. I need to, if I miss out on a week or two, I get really antsy. It's something that I feel I need to express and get out. And the same with going and seeing bands, watching music, listening to music, just the power of what people have created and that power to influence you and connect with you. It's absolutely magical.
Tara, I would like for you to respond in any capacity to what Steve just said. Can you relate to what he's saying?
Yeah, I can absolutely relate to what he's saying. I think music for me feels like a life force. It feels like something that pumps through my body. It is the thing that makes me experience emotions, associate emotions with particular times and places and people in my life. It is, that amazing feeling that you get when you're listening to a song and all the hair stands up on the back of your neck. A song can make you cry. A piece of music to make me cry. So yeah, I think I'm not as prolific as Steve. My songs probably like one a year. And they come to me in really strange ways. Like, I'll talk about that maybe later, but it's definitely, I can't drive somewhere without having, if I'm in the car by myself, really loud music playing, singing along, and I need music every day. So, yeah, absolutely.
I can echo those sentiments, and I'm sure people that are listening to this podcast feel the same way. Luke, he goes on to say in this chapter that if the arts are seen as just a pretty luxury, the dessert, not the meal, then those decisions make kind of sense. So why do we engage in these activities we call art? People say things like, art helps me see the world. Art helps me understand the world. Imagine. So Luke, what does art do for you?
Well, I think, like the others said, music is a big part of their life and, is a driving force for them. I would feel exactly the same way. Like, I can't imagine my life without music. I think it'd be horrid. There's a funny question that, one of those would you rather questions, and it's a bit of a funny one, but it's, would you rather go deaf or blind? And I think I would rather go blind because I could still play the drums and I can still listen to music. It's an absolute necessity for me. It's a total need, not a want. And I suppose, with a greater sense of art, it's a need for humanity, even, visually. Yeah.
So let's go one step deeper into this art conversation. Steve, this question is for you. Just today, as I was preparing for my interview and sitting here in the office, I decided to put on this record, The Byrds Played Dylan. And within 2 or 3 songs, I got completely transfixed and lost. And I was so taken back by the harmonies that the Byrds are so well known for. Of course, the jingle and the jangle pop. So tell the listeners and me, Steve, some albums that reflect exactly what we've been talking about.
Not even albums. I think the most amazing record, and I listen to it over and over, and I hear something different every time, is My Bloody Valentine's Loveless. Probably not the best songs maybe that they've ever written, but you can hear something different in every play of every song. You can listen to it on different stereos in cars at the pub. I saw a band the other night and they played Soon just before the band came out. Every context that you hear those songs, I hear something different. There's subharmonics. There's the most beautiful guitar sounds. The feelings that record, evokes. It is, there's lots of great records. There's lots and lots and lots. But, if there was one to me that has been absolutely just magical, it is that record.
That's interesting you say that, Steve, because the interviews that I've done with artists, musicians, that album comes up time and time again. Have you ever seen them live?
I have. I've seen them a couple of times live, and I'm flying over to Japan.
Are your ears okay?
Next year. No, I'm pretty deaf. They are very, very loud. But I'm getting to see them in Osaka and in Tokyo next year, so I'm very excited.
That's going to be incredible. Wow. Tara, so I'm going to list some bands here that I believe are from Sydney, and then I'll ask you this question. Still related to art. So we have In Excess, we have Tame Impala, we have AC/DC, and we have one of my favorite bands of all time, Midnight Oil. I can't say enough about the Oils. So Tara, for you in art, did any of these bands play a role in the development of the love for the arts? And if not, please name some.
They did not. So I think early on, my parents were listening to, I absolutely love Simon and Garfunkel. That was where I taught myself to harmonize to other people singing. And then I went on to Cyndi Lauper, Prince, and David Bowie. And I did see David Bowie live. I can't remember what year it was, but it was the Glass Spiders tour. It was pretty amazing. And then I kind of went into The Cure and the Smiths. I remember getting into the Jesus and Mary Chain, and the first time I heard Just Like Honey, that was like a game changer song for me. And then I had my Bloody Valentine Loveless experience at a barbecue in a place called Newtown in Sydney, and I couldn't listen to anything that anybody was saying. It was playing on like a record, and I just sat next to the speaker and was like, I feel like my life changed that day. So I love My Bloody Valentine as well. And now I got to see Dive and Julie play this year, and I love both of them as well. And then there's lots of stuff in between.
Never seen them. What were they like?
Both Dive and Julie? Julie they were great. They were like, reminded me of kind of like the quintessential art school band. They just were like too cool as fuck, you know, no audience interaction whatsoever, just got up, did their thing and looked awesome and played loud, and they were great. And Dive were absolutely incredible.
Okay, Luke, I'm going to read some names to you here, and then you'll start figuring out the connection, and then I'll ask you the question. So we have Steven Adler. We have Larry Mullen Jr. We have Meg White. Of course, I'm talking about what many consider some of the best drummers in the world. So talk to us about drumming, if you don't mind, and that aspect to art. And why drumming for you?
Well, drumming for me was born out of a lack of a drummer in the band I was in. So me and a couple of mates from high school, we had a band. I was playing bass, and we had two guitarists, and we could never find someone to fit the band as a drummer. We tried a few people. Some were great, some were not so great. But I had a drum kit at home, and they were just like, why don't we switch lead guitarist to bass? So he played a bit of lead bass, which was cool, and then I could just go to playing drums. And yeah, it seemed to work out. I think it's in the blood. My brother is a drummer as well, so had a bit of influence there. And if the question is about, you know, great drummers and influential ones for myself, then it would certainly be from the prog rock era of the 70s. That was kind of what I grew up listening to. But Phil Collins in the Peter Gabriel era Genesis is a massive influence for me. Like, that's, you know, how I learned how to play drums, which was listening to songs I could not play and then figuring out how to play them. So, especially in prog, obviously, it's very odd time signatures and very intricate playing. Let me think of some others. I mean, I don't know why this isn't coming to mind. Oh, yes, of course. Jimmy Chamberlain, Smashing Pumpkins. He's obviously a phenomenal drummer, very talented. And yeah, I certainly struggled to play some of those songs, but give it my best shot. And yeah, happy to say I can play some Smashing Pumpkins songs now, which is good.
So what do the drums do for you? How does it nourish you?
It's a great release of energy. I feel like it's it's so powerful. Like, you know, I think in the same way that, you know, you listed Meg White as a great drummer, and she doesn't overplay, you know, she suits the songs, she plays to the song, and that's super important to me. And even then, you know, if you're doing something simple, it can be still very powerful.
Yeah.
You know, yeah, a lot of energy goes into drumming.
Was this supported by your mom and or dad?
Oh yeah, yeah. They both supported music in the family in a big way, and I just can't be more grateful for the fact that, you know, we had a band room set up in our family home in the garage, and my mates would come around every weekend and we just smash it. It was awesome, and they didn't care how loud it was, and yeah, it was cool. Very supportive.
Thank you, all three of you, for giving me your interpretation of this quote from Brian Eno. And everything that you have shared makes complete sense to me, and definitely probably relatable for many of the listeners who are tuning into this podcast. Speaking of art and creation, I want to talk about this new album that you have released, and it is called Feel All Right. And what we're going to do right now is we're going to peel back the layers of this album. And how are we going to do that? I'm going to read to you several quotes from this book called How to Write One Song by Jeff Tweedy, frontman for the legendary alt-rock band Wilco. So, Steve, let's start with you. This is chapter 2 called The Hardest Part. I happen to love deadlines. Not everyone does. I do because they fit with my belief that art isn't ever really complete. As the saying goes, no work of art is ever finished. It can only be abandoned in an interesting place. It's a little too soon to delve into my particular routines, but at this point in life, I write with such regularity that being given a deadline, for example, an exact date when an album needs to be delivered to the mastering studio, is basically a pencils down alarm bell that allows me to stop making up new songs and to spend some time whipping an LP's worth of tunes into shape. So, Steve, and if anyone wants to chime in, of course, how do you feel about in the creation of art, music, anything like that, deadlines? Do you feel that stress at all? Does the band feel it? Or does the band just kind of go at their own pace and not worry about those parameters?
I think for us, it would be lovely to be in a position where we had a studio demanding an album of us, but I think we have the luxury of not facing that. So what that means is we can muck around with songs. We can play with them. We can test them out. We can come back to them. I think about this album, Feel All Right, and the songs on the album were written probably a couple of years ago now, most of them. Find Sometimes probably the exception to that. Some of them came together really quickly. Echoes of a Sunny Smile, the opening track. I think that came together in one rehearsal and we played it, and that was before Luke joined the band. Luke's only joined recently, but I think our drummer, Sean, Tara, me, Darren, Mark, had this massive smile on our faces. It clicked, you know, and that was really quick. Death Arrows, which is an amazing song Tara wrote, I think it took us a little bit longer. We all knew it was an awesome song. I think Tara sent through the demo and I worked on it and Darren worked on it. We do a lot of collaboration just by sending ideas backwards and forwards. And we worked hard on that one. We tried it out a few times. And then again, I remember it was a rehearsal. I think it was at Zine, and we're all in the room and all of a sudden that's the song. Nailed it. But, you know, so I think each of those songs took their own time coming together. Because we didn't have a deadline for this album, it also meant that we could try out a lot of songs live. And there's something, for me at least, there's something about the immediacy of playing music live. You get that visceral reaction from the audience. People are into it. You can see where they're switched on and you can see where their attention starts to wander. And so each of these songs on this record, they were picked because we really liked them, but also because they were ones that we knew worked really well for us. They worked with our setup, they worked with our groove, they worked with our vibe. And we recorded them. And it's actually the first time I've ever been happy. So this iteration, the band's been around for about 5 years. Darren and I actually played together much earlier as well as Trillion. But everything we've recorded up until this point, I've not been happy with. I regularly have a pseudo argument with Darren, who's also my best mate, helps run the band. And I say, I just want to pull everything off streaming. I want to get rid of it all because I've listened to it and I'm not happy with it. Whereas, and it comes to your question about deadline. At some point, you just have to accept a song is done. And so people might listen to that music and go, oh, that's great. I love it. And I regularly listen to some older stuff and go, oh, I could just redo this bit, or, oh, that bit's out of time, or, so never being satisfied. Whereas this record is the first time we've ever put anything out. And I am so proud, but there's bits I've changed. There's things missing. I'd like to do it differently if we had more time and studio budget. But actually, I now listen to this record from start to finish, and I'm so proud of it. So I think it can be helpful having a deadline. We have the luxury that we haven't had to work to that. Even with a deadline, I think, or without a deadline, as a musician, you'll always find things in your music where you go, oh, I could have just done that slightly differently. But I do think there's something about the creative process that you're right, it can just continue to run. And so you do need to say to yourselves, let's get down, let's put some of this music down, let's get it recorded. It's a point in time and let's move on.
So let's talk about the process here. Jeff Tweedy says, to me, process is whatever act you engage in, whatever steps you can take, whatever device you have at your disposal that you can use. Process is also the only name I know of for whatever series of contortions and mental tricks we have available to lose ourselves in when we can create. So, Tara, would you like to speak to either what Steve just said or that quote in terms of process?
I think Steve kind of summed up the making of this album beautifully. That was just what it was like. And some songs echoes came so easily. And Death Row is just took ages. But yeah, and I remember that day too where I was like, yeah, this is it. Process for me, I feel like it's almost like an out of body experience. I kind of, sometimes when we rehearse, I just feel like there's some kind of wizardry happening in the room. There are just these kind of moments of complete magic where things just fit. And so I wonder about process and whether it's more about the connection of the people making the process together rather than the process itself. And I think, yeah, you got to have that, I don't know what it is. It's just like we kind of fold into each other and then come apart and there's the thing. It just works.
Beautifully stated. Luke, you want to chime in? Go for it.
As Tara was saying, there's something magical in a room with a band. And from my experience, it's band chemistry. And either the band has band chemistry or it does not, because you can get a group of session musos in a room and play a song. And then you can get the band that wrote the song to play the same one, and it won't be the same, you know? The band that wrote the song and has the feeling behind it and the conviction will always sound better, in my opinion.
Because there are so many moving parts to the band, and this question is for Steve, I imagine there's a lot of dialogue going on in the creation of these songs, yeah?
There is and there isn't. We're all really time poor. So I've got kids, as do others in the band. And so one of the things that we have come to do over time is actually send around demos. So I sent the band demo last night. I've had an idea that's been floating around in my head for a couple of weeks. I finally got to put it down on Friday afternoon and send it to the guys. It's one of those things where I think we share, we actually share new music every Monday. We share songs that are influencing us at the time. I think and we have a band chat on Facebook Messenger, and oh my God, it just pings all day, every day. I actually think we don't do a lot of deliberate discussion about the songs. We do when we're actually in rehearsal, in studio, and writing. That's where we're, what about this? Let's try that. How about a stop here? What about a break there? Why don't we speed this up? Why don't we slow it down? So I think when we're actually at the song writing stage, there's a bit of discussion. But I actually think the magic, as Luke was saying, from a lot of what we do comes from that discussion and chat and feel and sharing of experiences and ideas and other influences that just happens along the way. And so it's almost like when we get into a studio, you go, okay, let's give this song a crack. Everyone's got a feel for it. Everyone's got a bit of a view about what's informed it. Everyone's kind of had a chance to come at it, and it brings it together. Doesn't mean it's always fast. Sometimes we try a song, we'll put it down, we'll come back to it a few months later. Sometimes we'll try it and it just won't work and go back to the drawing board, and sometimes we'll scrap it. But it's quite a natural process. We don't need to we haven't yet had to really sit down and go, right, let's have a look at bar X, this happens, and at bar Y, this happens. I think for us, as kind of Tara said, there's a bit of magic of the personalities coming together. I can look across at Darren, and if he's grooving on his bass, we've got it. If him and Luke aren't quite clicking yet, it's like, okay, I can see that's not working. Let's just jam on this bit for a while. So it's a different type of discourse. It's a more emotive driven discourse than a straight intellectual one.
You mentioned earlier to me that you're a father, yeah? How does fatherhood bleed into the work that you do as a musician, if at all?
Well, I reckon a couple of ways. So, I mean, part of it is being time poor. So, I need to play my guitar. It's one of my releases. I have ideas hit me at all sorts of times. I'll be out walking and I'll record a voice memo of an idea. I'll be half asleep and I'll go, I've got to remember that. As well as, sitting down and putting in hard work around what a song might be. So having to be flexible about when you can do your music. But I also think it's really important for your kids to see that, you've got those aspects of your life. You can, I'm a professional. I don't do this for work. It doesn't earn us any money. But this is another really important facet of what makes me me. And so my kids have seen me play. My kids are really proud when they, see stuff like this online. And they recognize the importance of those other aspects of you as a person.
Tara, you mentioned you're a mother, yeah? So feel free to share anything what Steve just said, but also how do you balance this life, this schedule, this experience with motherhood?
I don't really know. I feel like, again, it's just one of those things that happens. My kids are I guess a bit older now. They're teenagers. So I probably couldn't have done this 5 years ago because that wouldn't have worked with what they needed from me. But now they're kind of at that stage where it's like we get on great, but they're much more happy to kind of be online playing games or be with their friends, and there's not so much pressure to kind of do stuff on weekends. They've already got plans. So it kind of works that way. I don't know how it works, but I feel like it's again in the magic of the band. It just kind of happens because it's meant to.
So how does being a mother help you be a better band member?
So patient.
Oh, yeah.
I think motherhood has taught me patience. Like, it's taught me that, I might have an idea of how things are going to happen. And then I just kind of have to completely change that because that's not what happens, Steve.
Steve?
I think that's absolutely right. I often worry about Tara in this band of what was before we had another guitarist, Pete, as well, who helped us on this record. Poor Tara in this room with this bunch of 5 blokes fart-assing around, and Tara just patiently in the corner waiting for us to stop fiddling on our guitars, turn the volume down for a minute so we can actually have a chat about things. I think that patience is, as a parent, it's something, and Tara definitely brings that to the band. But also, I think we all bring just a focus as well because of being time poor. We get in, really love being in the band. And I think we recognize that it's such a reward to be able to fit that into our lives as well.
Yeah. I've heard that from other musicians who are also parents as well, that parenthood has taught them the art of being patient. Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Okay, Luke, this one goes to you. Again, this comes from the book, How to Write One Song by Jeff Tweedy. This is what he talks about: musical training and playing an instrument. So you want to write a song, but you say to yourself, I don't know anything about music. I could have said something like that about myself. I definitely don't have a background in music theory, and I don't read music. But I'm pretty confident in my ability to communicate music in my own way. To the person who says they don't know anything about music, I say this: have you ever heard a song and responded to it? Okay, you know music. So, do you know music in that sense? Do you know theory? Can you read the notes? Or do you just play by intuition and vibe and feeling?
That's a great quote. But yeah, it's all feeling for me. Like, I'm self-taught for drumming, and I taught myself how to play bass. And like I mentioned before, moved from bass to drums. But when that band dissolved, I was like, well, I want to kind of keep writing music, and so I might as well learn how to play guitar and write songs then. And so I did that too. But yeah, all self-taught. And it's just all, I guess because of the passion I have. And I guess that's what I said to other people as well, who, they might say, I wish I could do this, like play an instrument. Or I'm like, well, why don't you just do it? Because really, there's nothing stopping you. It's like, if you have a passion for it, then you can do anything really. It's a bit airy-fairy, but like, yeah, I mean, with music especially, like you can pick up a guitar and just start noodling on it. It's like, there's plenty of resources, especially nowadays online, to do it for free as well.
Do you teach drum lessons?
No, but that would be a great side hustle for me. Yeah. Maybe I should.
I bet you'd be quite good at it. In terms of this album, Feel All Right, let's go back to Steve. I want to learn more about the sequencing of these songs, because when you start off with Echoes of a Sunny Smile, I mean, that's a fucking banger of a song. That is like, and I say this with great complimentary words, that to me is, the leadoff batter in baseball just ready to set the tone for the game. This sets the table for the album. So, in the spirit of democracy, the sequencing, the arrangements of these songs, is that something discussed ad nauseum?
Interestingly, no. I mean, part of it, because like I said before, part of almost all the songs on the album have been part of a set for at least a year. And so when you're playing live, you kind of know what goes together. Weirdly, we are influenced a little bit. I play in a whole bunch of probably 5 or 6 different tunings. And so part of our set list is me not having to retune too often or swap guitars too often. But The ordering comes from what has worked for us live, but also up until relatively recently. So when Luke joined, one of the things that Luke's really helped do is get us organized. Between Darren and I, we've traditionally taken on most of the work that goes with the background stuff for the band. And, Luke's, I listed out about 20 things that were on my plate the other day, and Luke's kind of spreadsheeted it. And we've all, it sounds very un-rock and roll, but we've got a spreadsheet with names against who needs to do what by when. That's the reality of releasing a new album and promoting it. But Darren, the bass player, has done a lot of our mixing for the record. And because he spends so much time listening to the songs, hundreds of hours to pull the record together, he's got a feel, and he set the order because he knows sonically what matches, how it flows, and the ebb and flow of that emotional pull. Most people don't listen to records anymore in full. And so we, did have a bit of a discussion around, lead singles and, what do you release when and so on. But actually, Darren sent us the link, a SoundCloud link, and it had the record, the final mixed record, in the order. And he said, "What do you guys think about this?" And I listened to it and went, "Yeah, that flows really well." That's, so it wasn't a conscious debate about what comes second, what comes fifth, what's the closing song. It was just that emotional resonance of the play coming from Darren's feel for what everyone contributed.
I spoke to a band, and when they are in the final stages of putting the album together, they all go in a car and they go for a long drive and they listen to the album in a car, because that's usually really confined space, and they have a really nice sound system in that car, and they can hear and pick up a lot of those sounds. Is that something this band does? If you don't, how do you all listen to it together?
No, we don't. We're going back, this is time constrained. I think the band's gone through iterations. We've had probably more people through the band now than are actually in the band currently over the last 5 years. I think each iteration of the band has operated quite differently. This record reflected the 6 people who were in the band over the last probably 2 years. But it was more about when we were playing together. I think that we really connected. I think one of the lovely things now that we've got with this version of the band is there's a lot more open chat about things like that. So I could see us doing something like that in the future. And I've already started to think about, what comes next and what songs do we want to all bring to the table, and what would that sound like, and the evolution of the sound, because I'm a very strong believer in each record having its own unique sonic identity. And I think I could see us doing something like that. But I think up until this point, it's been very much in rehearsal and live. You get a feel for what works and what clicks, and that's how we've operated. But I also think that's probably this iteration of the band will be different.
Thank you. Tara, this question is for you. What is a live experience like for someone that sees the band on stage? Give us kind of an idea.
Wall of sound, for sure. Everyone that I've spoken to after a show has just been like, that was just epic. Like I felt, like I was kind of pressed up against something that was coming at me. Sometimes people have complained that the vocals are too embedded and that they can't hear the singing very well. But mostly, I think when I look out from where I'm standing, people are just like kind of, and then sometimes people dance. That's really cool, and kind of get up the front. And, we supported She Wants Revenge and when they came and played in Sydney, and that probably for me was like, I think, a highlight of life, a highlight of Trillion, a highlight of so many things, just looking out at this sea of people who got into it. And it was, I couldn't see the back of the room. It was just really exciting, and their vibing on us vibing made it amazing. Yeah.
So in listening to this album, sometimes I could conjure up images of what it would be like to experience some of these songs in a live setting. So I imagine, like I mentioned, Echoes of a Sunny Smile, whether you play that first or in the middle, I imagine that's a true banger. I'm glad Steven mentioned Death Arrows, actually my favorite song on the album. Are there particular tracks that you find, Tara, that people are really gravitating towards?
I think, like Steve said, these songs were chosen for this album because these are the songs that we have witnessed people kind of responding to. Everybody loves Echoes. I see people really getting into that kind of midsection of something like this. Death Arrows is a funny one. I feel like people are a bit like, well, this is a lot, you know? And I remember someone coming up to me after a show and saying, I loved your song about hard times. And I was like, thank you. Yeah, I think that's my answer.
Thank you. Luke, is there a song here that you love to just wail away at?
Yeah, from the new album.
Yeah.
Something Like This is my personal favorite for sure.
Yeah.
Especially because you can sort of unleash towards the end as a drummer and like really, really, I'm really happy joining the band because Steve was adamant that I didn't have to follow everything that was on all the recordings. I could give it my own flavor and inject my own personality into the playing. And learning that through many iterations of the band, that's how it works. The soundscape will change a little bit based on who's there and how everyone connects musically. So it's really cool.
As a band, Luke, do some of these songs take on a longer version of themselves than they do on the album? Like, do you flesh it out maybe 30 seconds, a minute or two?
Yeah, if I forget the structure, for sure. We'll accidentally go for a couple of extra progressions of the riff.
Steve?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, live, when a song is take a song like Echoes, if the end of that is really grabbing people, then we'll just keep playing on it. Sometimes something like this is another one that you can just groove on. But I also think the reverse of it's quite funny. So Echoes is the recording process in a studio is very artificial. We generally do instrument by instrument. So you'll have the drums done and then you'll have some guitars and the bass and the vocals come later. And you're playing your individual parts and you're playing them sometimes without the band members in the room. And so Echoes is actually too short on the recording. It's at least 20 seconds shorter than we play it live. We just forgot. Dropped a little bit at the end. It caused Darren all sorts of headaches when he was mixing it. The vocals, the vocal line at the end comes in far too quickly and the riff comes in over the top of the vocals or starts concurrently. We don't do that live. And I remember the first time when Luke joined us and played it and the song finished, we were like, no, that's not how it goes. It's like, oh, you're playing the recording. So, stuff like that happens. We had a song on the last record called Lo-Fi Days, which was the same. There's an extra part in there just because I think it was during COVID and I was in the studio by myself and I for whatever reason, played the guitar completely differently to how we'd ever played the song. And as each person that added to it, they're like, oh, this is interesting. Let's see what happens with this. So the songs are definitely different live. And sometimes they're even different in the studio when you're recording them and you think you know what you're doing.
So how has the songwriting matured since So Soon Now? And do you play some of those songs live? Like I would think maybe like, Cherry Blossom, other things like that.
Yeah, definitely. I think some songs have, because of the emotional resonance, some songs fit better with other songs.
Yeah.
So sometimes we drop things, sometimes we'll bring them back. Cherry Blossom, we're actually playing at the moment. We did a lot of shows around that last record, and we did get to a point as a band where we just can't play Cherry Blossom for a year. We've just got to put it all. And we did. We didn't play it for a while, and then we're playing it at the moment. We're playing a show tonight. It'll probably open the set with Cherry Blossom. Other stuff comes back just because you think, oh, that song, I can hear, something that was similar to an older song. But look, I think the maturity of the songwriting, you're always influenced by what you're listening to, what others are bringing to the band. And I think whilst for me, the songwriting process has stayed relatively similar, I've got a little home studio. I'm always bashing away on the guitar. I'm always thinking of different ideas. I also am very conscious that, the evolution from the last record to this one, was a deliberate thing. I had a sonic idea. I was very much wanting to get a group of songs together that represented what I think has come across with Feel Alright very cohesively. And the next record will be different again. So there's definitely a conscious evolution, but it's definitely informed by the feel of what's happening, what we're listening to, where we're at as people.
It's interesting you say that because when I listen to So Soon Now versus Feel Alright, I get a sense, and this is just my ears telling me, I get a sense that So Soon Now it feels darker, it feels moodier, it feels broodier, it feels like it's not as melodic as Feel Alright. Am I even close to this feeling?
Yeah, most definitely. Tara had just joined the band, I think, for So Soon Now. You hadn't been in the band for very long at all. And so I think Tara's parts were almost add-ons, whereas Tara is absolutely a fundamental part of the band now. And you can hear the difference that having that change in instrumentation brings. I also think, Feel Alright, So Soon Now was partly a product of COVID. And so a lot of those songs were written when we were all isolated. So we would share ideas, but we couldn't get together as a band. And so I think it was almost, for me, it's one of those ones I'd probably pull out a couple of those songs and they wouldn't make it onto the album if there was a remix. It was kind of, wow, we're free again. Let's get back together and let's get everything down.
Yeah.
But yes, it's definitely darker. I was definitely going for a different tone.
Okay, cool. Yeah. Tara, I'm going to ask you the question that is on so many people's minds today. And of course, I'm talking about artificial intelligence. Most of the artists, musicians that I've spoken with are really worried about it. There's been 2 artists that are actually very excited about it and can see its great potential. Where do you stand?
Yeah, very interesting question. So personally, as a musician, I wouldn't use it because for me, writing is emotion. It's me. It's an essence of me. And I feel like I wouldn't use it to help write a song. I wouldn't use it to kind of, in the creative process, I don't know. I find it alarming that I might go onto a streaming platform and listen to a song that has been written by AI and I'm not aware of that. That feels very strange to me. But yeah, I don't know. I like to think that I'm open-minded and I'd like to kind of, I guess, I wonder what will happen with it next. But it's not for me.
Luke, what are your thoughts?
I use AI in my job, and that's pretty much the extent of where I'd like to see AI because in the music world, it definitely should not be a part of the creative process. I mean, look, there's like a couple of pretty awful examples of AI music infiltrating large streaming platform like Spotify, and there was even a fraud case recently where some guy just like uploaded a bunch of different bands to Spotify and then also employed bots to listen to those artists, and then he collected like $40,000, something ridiculous, like, you know, yeah, or maybe it was a lot more than that, but I don't know.
Oh my
The
God.
specific details, but yeah, there was a big fraud case recently, and yeah, I even like I was using Reddit the other day and reading some things, and some some user on there had been catfished by this new shoegaze band they were listening to. They're like, "Oh, this is amazing," and then suddenly realized it was actually AI, and that this band had somehow produced like 4 albums in one day. It's like, oh right, okay, yeah, it's not actually a band; it's just some guy with an AI tool. Yeah, not pleasant.
And Steve.
I think there's enough people out there trying to make and making great music that we don't need to do it artificially. I think if you look at in my mind, there's tiers of bands. You know, there's big bands that have producers and lots of money, and then there's, you know, middle tier bands that are touring around the world. There's bands like us kind of, you know, doing it as a hobby because it's something we love. And then there's people just in there at home, just bashing out music that makes them feel good. You can access that music regardless of what you're into through, you know, there's the big streaming platforms. There's things like Bandcamp. People publish things just through Facebook and Reddit and so on. There's so much good music. There's so much that people are doing that is an expression of themselves. Why would you need that as artificial?
And that's interesting you say that, because I'm sure all of us and people listening have come across online where people have said music is completely over. It's done. It's so regurgitated. It's so rehashed. And I would argue and say there's incredible music being pumped out every day. It's hard to keep up with, but man, oh man, we can't sleep on so many great bands that are completely going unrecognized. So I'm glad you mentioned that. Before we wrap up this discussion, I want to throw this out regarding the album Feel Alright. Is there anything else you want to say about this that we haven't said or you haven't said already? So let's go one by one here. Steve?
I said it before, but this is an album that I'm really proud of. It's the first time that I think the band's put out something and it just feels right to me. It's beautiful. I really enjoy listening to it. I think there's 2 people who aren't in the band now who contributed or who helped write the songs, who recorded. Sean played drums, Pete played guitars, and I think you can definitely hear what they did on the album. And even though they're not in the band, they're still part of the band's history and, you know, had such a contribution to making this record and this record special for us. And I also think in terms of this record, it's the first time that we've really had a whole bunch of people reach out and tell us how they feel about it, which has been super lovely. You know, I had a guy reach out and say, "Oh, I love something like this. Can you tell me what the tuning is?" You know, because he wants to play it at home. Tara's had people come up to her and tell her how Death Arrows is so special. We've had people online say lovely things about it. And that's, you know, as a musician, we write because, you know, for me at least, it's imperative. I just have to. But to know that people are actually listening to what we've done and taking something from it, I think just it's a lovely feeling. It's not needed. It's not required, but it is so special that we've been able to do something that people feel, you know, that they want to say something back, and that's lovely.
I got a little goosebumpy there. That was really nice. I enjoyed that. Tara, any last comments you want to make?
I'm with Steve. Like, I am so incredibly proud of this album. I listen to it probably every day. And I listen to it from start to finish. I love every song for what every song brings. I don't have Spotify, but I did actually look at Spotify this morning and I saw that Death Arrows is like 8,000 something plays, which to me, I think it's just completely floored me. Like, yeah, I don't know. It's just been a very special experience, the whole thing. And it's so nice to have people listening and go, wow, I love this album and it makes me feel like this. Really special.
Yeah, and I know there's a gentleman who might be listening to this podcast. His name is DJ Yogi Shoegazer, who I know likes quite a bit. So, yeah. Luke, any final comments for you regarding the album? Anything you want to share?
Well, as Steve mentioned, I wasn't part of the process for the album. However, I must say it is a great record. That's just, my view on it. As a genuine listener and fan of the band, because I was a fan before joining the band and saw them play live. And yeah, the new record is great in my opinion. Some amazing songs, and as a bit of an insight to the kind of music I listen to, I really like sad, sort of slow, emotional songs. And when I say I like the song Something Like This, I think it captures that quintessential shoegaze sound of the intertwined female-male vocals. And it's just so beautiful. It actually brings tears to my eyes when I listen to it sometimes and get the goosebumps and everything. It's just like, wow, this is so cool. Yeah.
Absolutely. Steve, what's coming down the line for the band for the remainder of the year and beyond?
We've been doing some gigs around the place to support its release. I've started definitely thinking about new songs, what comes next. We've got a whole heap of different ideas. I've got songs I've sent around. Tara's got a song I'm really excited she's going to bring to the band. What I haven't got yet is a feel for what the next identity for the next record might be. I think we'll probably use a similar process to previously. Bring a whole bunch of songs, see what clicks, and then take it from there. But I'm definitely keen. Luke is new to the band, but Luke is now fundamentally part of the band, and looking forward to doing some recording with this version with Luke on drums as well. So I'm keen to get back in the studio once we've got that next set sorted. I think the challenge is going to be, we've already started like yesterday. I think I put one on the chat. Darren put 2 songs on the chat. Tara was talking about a song she's got. I suspect we're going to have that process again of, here's 30 songs. How do we whittle this down to something manageable?
I imagine you're super excited now that Luke is part of the team here and ready to exercise his prowess, his drumming prowess. It's great. Tara, do you want to recommend a movie, a book, podcast series, maybe a charity organization to our listeners?
Yeah, I'm watching a series at the moment. I think it's like season 5 of it. But if you haven't watched Slow Horses, it's like a BBC. Have you watched it? It's so fantastic. Gary Oldman.
Gary Oldman. No, I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, it's like a bunch of kind of, I guess, MI5 failures that they call the slow horses, who get put into this separate building and they're treated terribly by MI5, but they keep solving these crimes. The characters are fantastic. The storylines are fantastic. So I recommend that. And in terms of charities, like, I'm a newly minted social worker. And before this, I'd worked in animal welfare. So in Australia, the Cat Protection Society of New South Wales is a great one. They're a no-kill shelter and they do lots of really good proactive campaigning for cat rights. And I work now for an organisation called Barnardo's. I'm a child protection caseworker. So I really like the ethics of this charity, non-government organisation. I feel like they look after their staff well, and I feel like they look after the families that we work with well. So they're 2 picks from me. 3 picks, like including Slow Horses.
So if you don't mind me asking, is this like Child Protective Services?
No.
No.
So in New South Wales, we have the Department of Communities and Justice, DCJ, they're like the statutory body. So when you get them involved, they're the people that families have to work with. We are early intervention coming in to kind of keep families together. That's actually working.
Okay. Well, thank you for sharing. Really interesting. Luke, what would you like to recommend?
For all the drummers out there, if you haven't seen it, Whiplash, the movie, I'm sure, it's a few years old now, but it's a cracker.
I'm still thinking about that teacher. And it's so brilliantly shot. Oh, it's incredible. Yeah. Great recommendation. And Steve.
I have to put my band hat on and say, if you follow us on Instagram, each Monday on our band chat, we share a new song with each other. And I have been I've set up a Spotify playlist and I upload those 5 songs that everyone's recommended onto our Spotify playlist. There's a link in our Instagram page that you can go to Spotify and have a listen of what we're listening to at the moment. We have a bit of a chat about the songs. We share, it's a whole bunch of different stuff. It's not just shoegaze, but it's what's meaningful and impacting our songwriting at the moment. And so it would be remiss of me not to do a bit of self-promotion and say, jump on Instagram and follow Trillion Sydney and look at the links and have a listen along with us and see whether you think we're missing some good music.
Thank you for sharing. I'm going to recommend a book. The world is riddled with immense pain. People are suffering all the time, whether it be at home, their work, larger community, whatever it may be. And I feel like we need more comedy in our life. So I'm going to recommend a book called Surely You Can't Be Serious: The True Story of Airplane. And Airplane is the 1980 spoof classic film directed by the Zucker brothers and Jim Abrams. And what makes this book so compelling is that you get all the interviews with the people that were in the movie, Julie Haggerty, Robert Hayes, so on and so forth. And of course, the director and writer. But it really goes deep into some of those most famous scenes and how they were shot. And the shoestring budget these guys were on and how they put it all together is amazing. And it's funny as hell. So if you're looking for a little light pick-me-up, because like I said, the world is so dark right now, I'm going to recommend this book, The True Story of Airplane. So there. Steve, tell the listeners once again where people can check out the goodies, your band stuff, your music.
Awesome. Best place to do it is on Instagram. So we're Trillion Sydney on Instagram. Follow us there. We've got a link tree in that you can look at everything from the videos we've put on YouTube to where to buy the new record in vinyl, as Yogi Shoegazer posted just the other day. You can join our Spotify playlist. You can see what we're listening to, and you can see lots of pictures about what we're up to. That's the best place to find us and follow us.
I'm going to quote Yogi. He posted a picture and I commented and he said, "It's a beast." He's referring to the album. It's a beautiful fucking beast, may I add. Congratulations on this album. 25 minutes. Sit with it. You're going to want to replay it immediately. I was listening to it all morning. I was painting along with it. And there are just these wonderful moments that just kind of what we were talking about, what art does. It just kind of takes your breath away. So again, toast of the glass to all three of you. Trillion, thank you for joining me on Surprise Cast. Their album is called Feel All Right. Check it out. I'm going to read one more quote, and this time nobody's going to respond. It's called Don't Be Yourself. This might sound surprising, but you actually don't have to be yourself. Woody Guthrie's most famous bit of writing advice And one that I think has been echoed by many other writers of all types is write what you know. I think it's fantastic advice, especially in how it relates to the impulse. A lot of young writers have to dig into tropes and ideas that don't bear much resemblance to the way they actually live their lives. A guy such as myself avoiding words like Glock and Lambo or phrases like bottle of Jack or pick 'em up truck comes to mind when I consider how helpful this advice can be. But let's face it, Woody Guthrie had a pretty rich and fascinating background to draw upon. So, writing about what he knew really meant he could sidestep the relatively boring topics that are a big part of normal life today. Something to think about. My name is W, host of High Art on the Edge, host of this podcast feature that you have been tuning into, and thank you for that. And when I wanted to remember this, great music is all around us. All you have to do is simply keep your ears open. Ciao.